Stray Children is a curious game that follows its predecessor Moon, but with an effort to add a lot more gameplay to the experience. Controlling a young dog-like protagonist who you get to name, you immediately take control of him after your uncle stops by to fill you in on some secret game design your father did 30 years ago. Upon finding his secret game design studio, the test cartridge of an unreleased JRPG called Crescent Moon is shown to you, and much to the similarity of the previous game, you are then sucked into the monitor and appear in the game's world. In all Undertale-like fashion, the game's story is the primary focus, which tends to play around the rules of the usual RPG storytelling, a deconstruction of the genre. Upon exploring the world inside Crescent Moon, you'll find a familiar setting of any generic RPG. However, everyone is terribly depressed and in need of a hug. This is due to the fact that they're aware that the game itself had never been released. Due to this conundrum, the hero of the world never set out to defeat the evil demon lord. Speaking with the king, he will show very little belief or interest in doing his job, and meeting the hero himself is represented as an aimless husk of a person, since there's no player controlling him. This meta-like concept of referencing an unreleased JRPG goes further with the game deleting itself due to being a 30-year-old cartridge, succumbing itself into memory wipe. And all the creatures, such as the almost Dragon Quest-like slimes, all get sucked into an endless nothing, you and your uncle included. Upon waking up, you find yourself in a bizarre tree village. And finally, your journey begins. After maybe 2 hours of running around and speaking to NPCs with very little understanding where to go sometimes, you will be tasked with exploring the world for computer parts that will possibly help you leave this world. This concept of having to go between different regions feels very similar to Mario RPG, The Legend of the Seven Stars. Similarities begin to happen a bit more even in smaller cases like how the inventory menu looks, or generally the very strange and quirky humor the game happens to approach. Combat, on the other hand, is a much different beast that definitely needs to be discussed, as it definitely could use a lot of work. It took me almost 3 hours before my first encounter with an enemy. Granted, I was doing my very best to examine and speak to every NPC along the way. There are no waypoints on where to go, which at first I thought felt very liberating as it felt like a true SNES game not knowing where to go, but eventually became frustrating because it was hard to find what actually triggers progress. Combat is done solely through the main character. You never get party members, and your battle options are pretty limited. You can attack and kill enemies, or you can try talking to them. Talking to them is surprisingly powerful, but only if you figure out the right combination of words. If you succeed, not only does the fight end, but that enemy type disappears from the random encounter pool entirely. This is incredibly useful because battles can drain your health and resources quickly, especially if you're stuck or unsure where to go. I wasn't very successful at diplomacy and, well, I mostly just killed everything in my path. When has diplomacy ever worked anyway? The biggest variety in combat comes from dodging enemy attacks. When enemies strike, the game turns into a small bullet hell sequence where you manually avoid projectiles. Stray Children has a way of making you feel a lot of emotions.
Yes, if by allow you mean force.
Every area is written with its own story that shifts as you uncover more lore. Take the Snowman Run prison, for example. When you're locked inside, you genuinely feel trapped, partly because you have no idea what to do except follow the facility's rules. The same thing happens in the massive forest maze, which makes you feel lost and isolated. And with no party members, the loneliness is even more noticeable. The music isn't particularly memorable, serviceable, but nothing like the iconic Mario RPG forest theme that became a meme and even got a fan-made song. The gameplay definitely won't be for everyone, but the story absolutely shines. It's engrossing, introspective, and often existential. It makes you think, and while it's not the next Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest, it deserves attention for being a truly unforgettable experience.